Typically, traditionally would have been one lender. In today's environment, it's probably minimum of three with one lead. So we have in addition to the one that we're not putting all our apples in that basket only. We are having a kind of a corresponding dialogue with another lender. Again, 6 months ago, that would have been, I would have used the term, we're playing them against each other and the best guy wins, but that's not the case today. It's not a buyer's market. So we have another lender that's expressed interest, and if there's a way for them to participate with our lead lender that we're hoping to come through, we would absolutely support that, and that's what we're in dialogue with them about right now.
I have a few comments and questions, maybe a request at the end. These are probably more for Greg Leatherman, but it deals with how the hotel relates to the entirety of Harrison Square. You're welcome to stay at the table, or you can leave, but you're welcome to stay here. But Greg, the question I'd like to ask you is that I'd like to understand what will happen in the relationship between the hotel and the parking garage. The city built the parking garage, a 900-space parking garage. 30% of those spaces are reserved for the hotel. One for each room, that's 250, plus I believe 20 for staff, 270 spaces. Now, hopefully everything will go as you say, Dino, and I really pray that that happens. But if it doesn't, or it should take longer than we think, the garage will not be earning money based on the hotel paying for those spaces. How tough is that going to be on the garage? I'm assuming the money that the hotel would use for these spaces, pay for these spaces, would help go to the maintenance and upkeep of the garage. If that doesn't happen, where would we get the money to keep that maintenance and upkeep going? And what would happen to the 270 spaces? Would they go onto the open market? What would happen?
The parking deck did begin to host Lincoln employees yesterday, and they'll be parking in there for another several weeks. They'll make sure everything works well for them, and then it'll probably be open somewhere around March 1 for general parking, daily, hourly, whatever. The money that we had planned to use from revenue from the hotel, as well as a certain amount paid to us from Lincoln, was for maintenance, both short-term, daily, as well as long-term maintenance. The debt service for both the parking deck as well as the ballpark was from a multitude of sources: seated funds, TIF revenue from both the Jefferson Point end of it, as well as future TIF generated by the hotel, and other sources of revenue. It was extraordinarily front-end loaded with seated funds, back-end loaded with property taxes because of abatement and other things. So we're in good shape to be in compliance with our debt service for some time to come, because we weren't planning on much additional property taxes being generated by the site itself. So they're all tied together. Ultimate debt service comes from a multitude of revenue streams that we programmed into this. If the hotel begins even remotely close to the time frame outlined for you today, we're in very, very good shape. We were very conservative with our use of TIF funds from Jefferson Point. We committed only 50% over the life of the bond to the debt service, and we'll be in very fine shape to deal with the long-term debt, as well as maintenance of the garage when the hotel eventually comes online. If you're asking the question if there's no hotel at all, there are serious complications.
Or maybe for a year, whatever.
We're in very fine shape if it's a year or 18 months even, to deal with maintenance as well as debt service for the entire project.
Okay. Another concern I have, when Mr. Diddy was speaking a minute ago, he said how the hotel is going to be a great asset for the Grand Wayne Center, and I agree with that. But there's also a certain part of Harrison Square that causes me to have a little fear for the Grand Wayne Center. The Grand Wayne Center is going to have a lot of competition, especially for meeting space. You know, when you look at the ball diamond, it has meeting space. The parking garage is not just a parking garage, but it's a parking garage and conference center. The hotel itself, I was looking at your website, will have 6,000 square feet of meeting space. With the new sky bridge going across to the embassy, they want to open up the hallway that goes through there to the hotel rooms on either side of the hallway for more meeting space, and the ballroom downstairs in the lobby of the hotel. They want to have parties and receptions and that sort of thing. And you can look at across the street from the Grand Wayne Center, the public library, a lot of public meeting space there. I guess one of the things I'm concerned about is when I begin to look at the totality of this, before I was kind of looking at each piece of its own silo, when you begin to put it together to all these places that have meeting spaces available, they will be in direct competition with the Grand Wayne Center. Now, keep in mind the Grand Wayne Center is a public facility, and most of the other things I've been talking about are either paid for by the public sector or highly subsidized or underwritten by the public sector. I guess one of the things I'm concerned about, and I want you to think about this, I'm not asking for an answer, is that do we need to have some sort of a meeting space summit for all these people involved? Because I really have a feeling that there could be the law of unintended consequences for the Grand Wayne Center. I don't want them to suffer. And I don't want all these people trying to cannibalize each other somewhere down the road, because there's going to be a lot of square footage of new meeting space. So maybe you could pull together some sort of a meeting to talk about these things. Maybe there needs to be a Grand Wayne First policy or something. I don't know what. But it does concern me, and I think that concern will come online in a year or two down the road. And, you know, we're putting in, you know, about $400,000 a year to the Grand Wayne Center in seated money. And it's kind of an irony, but actually the Grand Wayne Center is putting in $250,000 a year into the hotel. It's kind of funding its own competition. So that really does concern me. And I don't know that you could have thought of all that in advance, and if you did, well, you did. But I think it could be a problem. And I think the people who are involved in all this need to come together at some point and figure out what's going to happen, because there's so much public tax money involved in all these places. And even the Botanical Gardens has meeting rooms in it. So I'm just kind of a bit afraid for the Grand Wayne Center.
I have just two things to say in response directly to that statement. Number one, if there isn't a growing of the pie, the additional venues, as well as the new and the existing venues, would suffer. I do know from talking with the folks that are going to run the ballpark that they're going to grow the pie. They're going to add they're going to add events and activities to downtown that haven't been there before. That's number one. Number two, the group that you speak about is meeting monthly today. The goal and the focus of those meetings is on the parking and traffic issues as we head into opening day, and how to make people aware where parking is and how to get there and so on and so forth. That group meets monthly, and everyone that you just mentioned, plus many other groups from the police department, the library, the CBB, the Botanical Gardens, the embassy, we're all meeting on a monthly basis to talk about parking. And I fully expect this shift of focus after opening day and opening homestand, and we tweak the approach to getting people to and from the ballpark with parking, will be exactly that issue, and probably others that come up that we're not even thinking about right now. So the group is together. I don't see it, I'd see it only changing its focus as we go on.
Can I speak to this point?
Oh, sure, Gordy, I have another point that I'd like to make.
Yeah, I don't want to confuse things. The Grand Wayne Center is thrilled with the development of this hotel. They're not wary of the competition at all. In fact, the complement of the hotel and the extra meeting space will allow for bigger conventions, more breakout rooms, and they've just been thrilled throughout this. There's nothing they want more than this hotel to open. And so I don't want to lose that in all of this. The Grand Wayne Center has been doing well with its expansion. It's a tough economy. They're not being able to attract conventions because we don't have this hotel. Is there going to be some choices between parties, whether they pick the hotel rooms or the Grand Wayne Center? Surely. Overall, it's going to be a huge net win for the city, for the citizenry, and for the Grand Wayne Center, and gosh, I hope, for the hotel. And so this was all known, considered, and discussed all along. We all along planned the meeting room at the end of the ballpark as a benefit. There's going to be opportunities for events within the ball stadium itself as well as the hotel.